What is going on YouTube? This is Jim, and today I want to talk to you about my favorite game, Halo 5. Now, Bonnie Ross, who you may know is the head of 343, the curators of the Halo franchise, she was actually at DICE's Game Awards yesterday, and she gave a little bit of speech, talked a little bit about Halo, and that's what I wanted to focus on today. Yes, split screen will be standard in all future Halo games. I know a lot of people are excited about this. Personally, I don't really care so much because I always play alone anyway, but it is nice to see that they're going back to their roots. The thing I did want to focus this video on, though, is when she talks about the studio's approach to storytelling. This comes from IGN, and she says, "We love our transmedia. Sometimes I think we do tell a little bit too much story in our games." And she says that 343 plans to keep the game story simpler and to use transmedia only to tell deeper narratives. Now, that is a very interesting statement because I think it is completely opposite of what they have been doing, and I think it's completely opposite of the direction that they've already gone. I hope that she's serious in this, but up until now, they haven't done a very good job of that. Brief history, as you guys know, wasn't a super huge fan of Halo until Halo 4. Really, Halo 5 captivated me in ways I still yet to understand. I listened to the Hunt the Truth podcast. I read the website. I was really into the developers' notes, the blogs, everything, trying to understand the universe the best that I could. And it was very frustrating to me that all the lore that was given to me in the Hunt the Truth series had absolutely no bearing whatsoever on Halo 5's main narrative. And you look at games like Halo Wars and now Halo Wars 2. Yes, it's nice that they're building new characters and they're expanding the franchise. I really do like Spartan Locke. I'm interested in Spartan Book. I think that the Fireteam Osiris definitely has room in the greater Halo universe. And I'm not opposed to playing a Halo game that isn't with the Master Chief. That's okay. However, there needs to be a better narrative told in the game and in the transmedia universe, because what's happening is the two are coming together in ways that are yet to be seen. That's the frustrating thing. I've now been working my way through the old Halo lore books, the original, the story books of, the behind the scenes kind of stuff. Not even behind the scenes, actually. This would be like The Flood or The Fall of Reach. And I'll tell you guys that the stories so far are just rehashed word for word of somebody basically playing through the game. They don't really inject a lot of back lore. When you look at the Hunt the Truth podcast, great story about the cover-up of Spartan, the Spartan program and everything. Nothing really uniquely told there, though. This was stuff that we already knew. It was covered way back in the Fall of Reach book, like 15 years before the podcast came out. So what did that really tell us? And there wasn't any deeper hooks into the game. And as a matter of fact, the game's advertising was completely misleading from what the actual game was about. So how do they fix this? Well, if Bonnie Ross is to be believed, and if Halo 6 is going to be a simpler story, I'm okay with that. You don't have to have overly complex stories in games to tell a good narrative. You look at games like Journey or Inside, where there isn't really much there. It's kind of left to your imagination. And you can create amazingly deep, rich stories without really even saying a word. Literally not saying a word, and just letting the game world speak for itself. Halo has a deep history and a deep lore to pull from, and they could do something like this. Yes, you're going to obviously have to have dialogue, but you really need to take a step back and say, okay, what are we trying to tell here? What did we accomplish? How are we going to push this narrative forward? And I think that you need to take the books and you need to take the podcasts and the blog and the developer notes and that sort of thing. That's where you're going to start fleshing out characters that we're going to get introduced to. That's where you're going to explain some of the gaps that are missing in the story. And that's where I think you're going to blend everything together, because that is no time limit. That is a continuous rolling wave. You can constantly release new media. You could constantly make it better. However, there are a lot of us, and I was one of these people until Halo 5, that only knows Halo from the games. So when you take such a wild leap from Halo 4 to Halo 5 and you're like, wait, what happened? This doesn't make sense. And there's this whole other timeline of the transmedia universe that fills in the gaps. I think that is where Halo falls apart. And I think you can really do a better job, 343, of linking the core games together to tell a nice story arc contained within that. Then take all of the other things, the podcasts and the books, and start to flesh out that story even more so there's an even deeper understanding. But a player who has not read the game, the blogs, or any of that other stuff should not be let down by a narrative from a game to a game. Most people do not spend their free time reading about the video games, and instead they play the video games. You didn't have to understand a lot in between Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood and Unity and all that kind of stuff because the story continued. If there was additional media, I'm not even sure. It didn't matter because the game did a good enough job of making a very discrete point in time with a clear goal, a clear objective, and clear ways to get there. And Halo can do the same thing. And I don't understand why they failed so bad on this. I don't know why 343 had to go through a bumbled Master Chief Collection, a Halo 4 game, and a Halo 5 game that had pretty weak stories, all things considered, and now say, hey, we think we finally figured out the recipe to success. I'm not entirely sure 343 is up to this task, but I have faith in them. I loved the gameplay and the multiplayer aspects of Halo 5. I'm actually getting ready to go watch another tournament here in a few minutes. So I'm hooked. You don't need to sell me. I'm getting it. I'm going to be at the Microsoft Store day one. I'm going to be the guy who's the first guy in line with the Master Chief on the wall, with the Halo loot crates, with the Play Arts Kai figures. I'm that guy. You don't need to sell me. What you need to do is you need to sell everybody else and say, hey, we want you to put faith in our games. Halo 6 picks up right after Halo 5. But for all you nerds out there, we're going to add an ancillary character who will be explained in the main story if you never played or never read the books. But if you did, there's some more fleshed out intentions. Maybe there's some deeper narrative there. And if you're going to go this expanded universe route, 343, you have to do it correctly. And up until now, you really haven't. And it's really frustrating because I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to understand. I want to care. I do. I really deeply love this franchise. But for everybody else who's playing through the games, it's these snapshots in time that are not sequential. There is a lot that happens in between that is lost. You look at a game like Halo Wars 1, that entire story was throwaway. Complete filler. There was nothing that impacted the greater Halo universe. Haven't yet played through Halo Wars 2. I suspect it'll probably be more of the same. I just warn 343, think about what you're doing. However, hearing what Bonnie Ross said, whether they succeed on this or not, we're going to have to wait and see until Halo 6. I hope they've learned their lesson. So that's my rant on all things Halo. I'm a passionate player. I'm allowed to do things like this because I care. And I hope for everybody out there who's watching this video, you think about this in the same terms that I do. A guy loves the game so much, he's willing to compromise on all these other things. And think of how much better the experience could be if the story actually made clear, concise sense. As always, I want to thank you guys so much for watching my channel. Getting close to 500 subs, that's really cool. I have each and every one of you to thank for that. As always, get out there, play some Halo, and until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.